Hashtag Valkyrie Ghost Protocol. Part 1, The Invisible Valkyrie. Helmand Province, Afghanistan, August 15th, 2021, 2,347 hours. The generator died mid-surgery. Emma Thorne's hands didn't stop moving. Couldn't stop. The 19-year-old rifleman on her table had maybe 3 minutes left. Maybe less. Flashlights. Her voice cut through the darkness. Sharp, controlled. The voice of a woman who had operated in worse conditions. Someone get me light. Now. 2 beams clicked on. Weak. Shaking in the hands of terrified medics barely older than the boy bleeding out in front of her. Emma's hands were steady. 48 hours without sleep. The smell of blood so thick in the air she could taste copper with every breath. Sweat running down her face, mixing with God knows what, splattered across her surgical mask. The khaki tent walls of the field hospital shuddering with each rocket impact. Getting closer. Always getting closer. Valkyrie, we've got 3 more incoming. The radio crackled. Static. Panic. Critical. All critical. Emma's jaw tightened. Her fingers kept suturing, clamping, keeping this one soul tethered to life while 3 more slipped away somewhere in the dark. She couldn't be in 2 places at once. She couldn't save them all. The choice that would haunt her for the next 3 years crystallized in that moment. Save the one in front of her. Let the others wait. Let them bleed. Let them pray someone else could keep them alive long enough. I can only save one at a time, she whispered. To herself. To God. To the darkness pressing in from all sides. The building shook. Dust rained from the ceiling. Somewhere outside, someone was screaming. The high-pitched wail of a child. No, not someone. Children. Plural. Emma's hands faltered for just a second. A fraction. The thread slipped. The medic's voice, young, scared. She recovered. Finished the suture. Stepped back as the rifleman's vitals stabilized. Barely, he'd live. Probably. If the medevac came in time. If the generators came back online. If the rockets stopped. Too many ifs. Emma stripped off her gloves. The screaming outside had stopped. That was worse. Silence meant the explosion hit before her mind could finish the thought. The shockwave knocked her sideways. Surgical instruments scattered. The tent's supports groaned. Someone was shouting about the orphanage. The orphanage, 200 meters from the hospital, where 37 children had been sheltering from the fighting. Emma ran. She ran through smoke and darkness and the acrid stench of burning fuel. She ran past wounded soldiers trying to stop her. She ran until her lungs burned and her vision blurred, and she reached what was left of the orphanage. The building was gone. Just gone. In its place, a crater. Rubble. Flames licking at the night sky. And scattered among the debris, small shapes that her mind refused to identify. Refused to acknowledge. Refused to... Emma fell to her knees. The screaming started again. This time it was hers. Portland, Oregon. October 18th, 2024. 2,243 hours, present day. The hospital corridor smelled like disinfectant and lies. Emma Thorne pushed her mop back and forth, the rhythm soothing, mindless, safe. She was 54 years old, 5'4" in her cheap nursing clogs, dirty blonde hair pulled back in a ponytail, held together with a drugstore elastic band, scrubs 2 sizes too big hiding the compact muscle underneath, the body of someone who still ran 5 miles every morning, still did push-ups until her arms shook, still trained like she might need to fight, even though she'd promised herself she never would again. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, harsh, clinical. Nothing like the warm darkness of that tent in Helmand. Nothing like the orange glow of the orphanage burning. She pushed the mop back and forth. Invisible. That's what she'd become over the past 18 months. Emma Thorne or Ann Floatpool. The middle-aged nurse who changed bedpans and mopped floors and kept her head down and her mouth shut. The woman nobody looked at twice. The ghost in scrubs. Exactly what she'd wanted. Exactly what was killing her. Thorne? Dr. James Brennan's voice cracked like a whip. Don't just stand there. Get me more lap pads. Move. Emma's grip tightened on the mop handle. The backs of her hands bore scars. Small. Puckered. Shrapnel patterns that most people never noticed. Never looked close enough to see. Yes, doctor. Her voice came out soft, submissive. The voice of someone who'd learned to disappear. She set down the mop. Walked to the supply closet. Her gait slightly hunched. Shoulders rounded. Making herself smaller. Less threatening. Less capable. Less. Behind her, Brennan laughed. Talking to the other residents. Young, confident, wearing their Johns Hopkins and Stanford credentials like armor. These older nurses, he said, not bothering to lower his voice. They're dinosaurs. Can't even work the electronic charting system. Hospitals should have retired them years ago. The other residents laughed. Emma opened the supply closet, grabbed the lap pads. No tremor in her fingers. Not anymore. She'd trained herself, controlled the shaking through sheer will, through medication she hated taking, through breathing exercises that only barely kept the memories at bay. The TV in the corner of the waiting room flickered. News, always news. Emma's eyes tracked to it without conscious thought. Old habits, always scanning for threats, always watching. The anchor's face was serious, professional. The Blackwell Defense Solutions corruption trial has been delayed again today. Federal prosecutors cite the continued absence of their key witness, whose identity remains protected under court seal. The trial, which could implicate dozens of Pentagon officials and defense contractors in a multi-billion-dollar fraud scheme, cannot proceed without this witness's testimony. Emma's jaw clenched. She grabbed the lap pads, turned away from the TV, walked back to where Brennan waited, tapping his foot impatiently. "Took you long enough," he said. Didn't even look at her. Just snatched the supplies and walked away. Emma returned to her mop. Back and forth. Back and forth. Invisible. The break room at 2:30 a.m. was a liminal space. Fluorescent lights dimmed, coffee machine gurgling, the night shift's temporary refuge. Emma sat alone in the corner. A protein bar she wasn't hungry for, water in a hospital-issue cup, her eyes fixed on nothing. At the table across the room, 3 young doctors huddled, voices low but not low enough. "Did you see Thorne try to use the new IV pumps? One of them, male, couldn't have been more than 30. God, it's painful to watch." Female voice, laughing. "She just stares at the screen like it's going to explain itself. These old nurses, they're all the same, too slow, too confused, I think she's nice." A third voice, younger, uncertain. Emily Hayes, 24 years old and still naive enough to believe kindness mattered in a place like this. "Nice doesn't save lives, Emily. Competence does." Emma took a sip of water. Let the words wash over her. She'd heard worse, survived worse. These children with their medical degrees and their student debt and their absolute certainty that youth equaled superiority, they didn't know. Couldn't know. Wouldn't believe it if she told them. She finished her water, threw the cup away, walked past their table without a word, without a glance. Invisible. Dr. Catherine Donovan stood at the coffee machine, 48 years old, red hair going gray at the temples, sharp green eyes that missed nothing, the attending physician on duty. The only one in the hospital who sometimes looked at Emma like she saw something underneath the oversized scrubs and submissive posture. "Long night, Thorne." Donovan's voice was neutral, professional. "Every night's long, doctor." Emma kept her eyes down, respectful, appropriate. Donovan poured her coffee, added cream, stirred slowly. "You know," she said, conversational, "I've been watching you." Emma's pulse quickened. Barely. Just enough to spike her blood pressure. Just enough to make her hypersensitive. "Ma'am, 6 months you've been on this floor. You never call in sick. Never complain. Never make mistakes." Donovan took a sip of coffee. "You're invisible." Deliberately so. Emma said nothing. "I used to know someone like that," Donovan continued. "Long time ago. Navy Medical Corps, surgeon who'd seen too much, done too much, came home and just wanted to disappear into the work." She looked directly at Emma. Took her years to realize that invisibility isn't the same as healing. Emma met her eyes just for a second, just long enough to see understanding there, recognition. Then she looked away. "I should get back to work, doctor." "Yeah." Donovan's voice was soft. "You should." Emma walked out. Behind her, Donovan watched her go. Something troubled in her expression. Something knowing. 2,314 hour. The trauma bay doors exploded open. Emma was in the corridor, mopping, always mopping, the smell of industrial cleaner sharp in her nose. Paramedics burst through, shouting, moving fast. A gurney between them with a man on it, blood everywhere. The arterial kind, the kind that sprayed in rhythmic pulses. The kind that meant you had minutes, maybe less. Emma's mop stopped moving. Her eyes tracked the spray pattern on the ceiling tiles. 12 feet, high velocity, complete arterial transaction. Femoral most likely. She calculated blood loss without conscious thought. Estimated time to unconsciousness, to irreversible shock, to death. 90 seconds until consciousness fades. 3 minutes until brain damage. The numbers scrolled through her mind like a combat briefing. Automatic, unstoppable. Trauma 1, someone was shouting. Dr. Brennan, his voice higher than usual. Stress, fear. Someone grabbed that bleeder. Emma's grip on the mop loosened. Her hands hung at her sides. Completely still. No tremor, no shake. For the first time in 18 months, her PTSD wasn't controlling her body. Her training was. She stood in the corridor, watching through the open trauma bay door. The construction worker on the gurney, his leg nearly severed. Industrial accident. The paramedics' tourniquet failing, soaking through, red pulsing through the gauze like a metronome counting down to death. Brennan stood frozen, his perfectly styled dark hair now speckled with arterial blood, his white coat splattered crimson, his hands shaking. "Clamp it," Dr. Donovan's voice from 3 bays down. She was elbow deep in another patient's abdomen. Couldn't assist. "Brennan, clamp it now." "I am," his voice cracked. "I am, but it's not the pressure, I can't." Emma's eyes tracked his hand position. 2 inches too lateral, missing the femoral artery completely. Amateur mistake. Fatal mistake. The patient's blood pressure dropped. The monitor alarm changed pitch. 70/40, then 65/38. Emma's jaw clenched. "Not yet. Stay invisible. Let them try. Let them fail first." Dr. Donovan abandoned her patient, ran to Trauma 1, took one look at the situation and her face went pale. "Where's vascular?" "In surgery," someone called back. 40 minutes minimum. The patient didn't have 40 minutes. He had maybe 2. Emma took one step toward the trauma bay, then stopped, her body rigid, every muscle locked in conflict. 18 months of hiding, 18 months of safety, 18 months of not making choices about who lived and who died. All of it balanced against one man's life. One man who had a wallet in his pocket with photos of 3 kids. One man who'd kissed his wife goodbye this morning thinking he'd be home for dinner. One man whose only crime was being in the wrong place when industrial equipment failed. The monitor flatlined. The sound cut through Emma's hesitation like a scalpel. That horrible endless tone, the sound of a heart giving up. No pulse, one of the residents. Young, panicking. He's coding. Brennan stumbled backward, his blood-soaked gloves held up like surrender. "Start compressions," Donovan ordered. "Someone get me EpiCharge, the defibrillator." A young nurse, barely out of orientation, climbed onto the gurney, started chest compressions, but with every compression, more blood pumped out of the severed femoral artery, pooling on the floor, splashing onto the walls. You can't compress life into a body that's bleeding out faster than you can pump. 30 seconds. Monitor still flat. 60 seconds. Still flat. Emma closed her eyes. She saw other faces, younger faces, soldiers who died because she hadn't been fast enough, skilled enough, brave enough. The 3 critical casualties she couldn't reach while she saved 1 rifleman. The 37 children she couldn't protect. All the impossible choices. This one she could save. If she stayed invisible, he would die. If she acted, her invisibility would shatter forever. The decision took less than a heartbeat. Emma Thorne dropped the mop. The clatter echoed in the suddenly silent corridor. She shoved the trauma bay door open with enough force that it banged against the wall. Every head turned. The submissive hunch was gone. Her shoulders pulled back. Her spine straightened. She seemed to grow 3 inches in height. Her gray-blue eyes, which had spent 18 months staring at floors, now scanned the room with tactical precision. "Move." Not loud, not a shout, but the command in her voice was absolute. The young nurse doing compressions hesitated. "I said move." Emma's voice cracked like a whip. The nurse scrambled off the gurney. Emma stepped to the bedside, her fingers perfectly controlled as she assessed the wound. She looked at Brennan. "Clamp." "You don't have authority to," Brennan started. "Clamp, now." Emma's eyes locked onto his. There was something in that gaze that made the arrogant resident take a step back. Something cold. Something that had seen death up close and refused to blink. One of the other residents, hands shaking, placed a large Kelly clamp in Emma's palm. Emma didn't hesitate. She plunged her hand directly into the wound, her fingers finding the retracted, severed femoral artery by touch alone. She pulled it out of the muscle, visualized the anatomy in her mind, a 3-dimensional map she'd memorized in combat zones where mistakes meant death. She clamped it with perfect precision. The arterial spray stopped, instantly. "Pressure's rising," someone whispered, shocked. 60/35, 70/40. Emma grabbed a second clamp with her free hand, secured the distal end of the artery. Then she looked at the crash cart. 2 units O negative, pressure bag, wide open IV access, move. The staff moved, not because she was a nurse, because she had become something else entirely. "We still don't have a pulse." Brennan's voice, weak, trying to reassert control. Emma looked at the monitor, pulseless electrical activity, the heart trying to beat but unable to generate pressure because there was no blood volume left to pump. "He needs blood before we can circulate," Emma said, her voice calm, clinical. "And he needs internal compression on the aorta to redirect flow to the brain." She paused. "That requires opening the chest." Dr. Donovan's voice came from the doorway. "Yes." She stared at Emma. At this quiet float nurse elbow deep in ephemeral wound, blood soaked to the elbows, giving orders like a trauma surgeon. It does. Emma met the attending's eyes. Then let me do it. The room held its breath. And then from outside, cutting through the tension like a knife, the unmistakable sound of helicopter rotors. Close. Getting closer. Emma's head snapped toward the window. Her entire body went rigid. That sound. That particular rhythm. Not a medical helicopter. Military. Her gray-blue eyes widened. The scar above her left eyebrow, partially hidden by loose strands of hair, seemed to pulse. Medevac inbound, someone shouted from the ambulance bay. ET, 2 minutes. Multiple casualties. They're saying GSWs and blast injuries. Gunshot wounds, blast injuries. Combat casualties. Coming here. To her hospital. To her hiding place. Emma's hands stayed steady on the clamps, but something in her expression changed. The carefully constructed mask of Emma Thorne, invisible nurse, cracked. Dr. Donovan was staring at her. Thorne, she said slowly, how did you know how to do that? Emma didn't answer. She was listening to the helicopters, counting them. 2 birds, maybe 3. Multiple casualties meant a full trauma team response. It meant military personnel. It meant people who might recognize her. The construction worker gasped. A real breath. His eyes fluttered. We have a pulse. The monitoring nurse's voice cracked with relief. Sinus rhythm, BP, 85/50. Emma released the clamps carefully, watching for rebleeding. The vessel held. She stepped back, her hands dripping red. Get him to the OR, she said quietly. He needs vascular repair within the hour. As they rushed the gurney toward the elevators, Dr. Brennan stood in the corner, his face pale, his perfect image shattered. Dr. Donovan stepped in front of Emma, blocking her path to the door. Who are you? Donovan asked, soft but demanding. Emma looked down at her blood-soaked scrubs, at her scarred hands, at the life she'd just saved with skills no float pool nurse should possess. The helicopter rotors were directly overhead now, the building vibrating with their presence. Nobody, Emma whispered. I'm nobody. But they both knew that was a lie. 2318 hour. The double doors of the ambulance bay exploded inward. The helicopter wash had barely settled when 4 Navy corpsmen burst through, pushing 2 gurneys simultaneously. The noise overwhelming. Radio chatter, rotor wash still echoing, shouted medical terminology that made Emma's blood run cold, because she understood every word. Trauma 1 and 2, Dr. Donovan shouted, her earlier suspicion about Emma momentarily forgotten in the chaos. What do we have? The lead corpsman didn't break stride. Muscular, black, a combat medic patch on his sleeve. 2 urgent surgical, patient 1 GSW to the upper right quadrant, entry and exit, significant hepatic involvement. Patient 2 blast fragmentation injuries, suspected hemothorax, decreased breath, sounds left side. Emma had pressed herself against the wall near the supply room, her head down, ponytail obscuring her face. Stay invisible. Let them handle it. Walk away. But her eyes tracked the gurneys anyway. Training she couldn't unlearn. The first patient was male, late 20s, wearing the tattered remains of a desert camouflage uniform, his face covered in dust and dried blood. But his patches were visible. Navy SEAL Trident, the gold eagle and anchor and pistol that marked him as one of the elite. Staff Sergeant Marcus Torres, the name tape barely legible under the blood. The second patient was younger, maybe 24. His chest wrapped in combat gauze already soaking through, his breathing rapid, shallow. Tachypneic, the telltale sign of a collapsed lung stealing oxygen with every failed breath. Get them on the tables. Dr. Brennan had recovered some of his composure, though his hands still trembled. Chest X-ray stat, type and cross for 6 units each. No time for X-rays. The corpsman interrupted. Patient 2 is getting worse. We did a needle decompression in the bird, but it reaccumulated. He needs a chest tube now. Emma's hands clenched into fists. She knew that presentation. Tension pneumothorax that had been temporarily relieved, but was building pressure again. The mediastinal shift would crush his heart and great vessels if they didn't decompress immediately. I'll place the tube, Brennan announced, snapping on gloves. Get me the tray. Emma watched from her corner as Brennan approached the second gurney. The young SEAL's lips were turning blue, his jugular veins distended, bulging against the skin of his neck. Classic signs. But Brennan was moving too slowly, talking too much. Explaining the procedure to his residents like this was a teaching case and not a life slipping away. Behind the corpsman, 3 more figures entered. These weren't medics. These were operators. Emma recognized the walk before she even looked at their faces. The way they moved, scanning corners, assessing threats, positioning themselves with tactical precision even in a hospital. They wore civilian clothes, jeans and tactical boots, and concealed carry jackets. But their haircuts and bearings screamed military. The tallest one stepped forward, 6'4", white, red-brown beard, a sleeve of tattoos visible beneath his pushed-up sleeves. His eyes swept the trauma bay and locked immediately onto Emma. She looked away too fast. Tactical mistake. Someone trained would notice that avoidance. "Doctor," the bearded man addressed Brennan, his voice carrying the gravel of 1,000 briefings. "That's Petty Officer Connor Blackwood. He took shrapnel saving my life 30 minutes ago. You take care of him." It wasn't a request. Brennan bristled. "I'm doing everything I can. Now if you'll step back and let me work." "Sats dropping," a nurse called out. 85%, 82. Emma's eyes snapped to the monitor. The oxygen saturation was plummeting. Brennan hadn't even started the chest tube procedure yet. He was still prepping the sterile field, moving with textbook precision but no urgency. The bearded SEAL's jaw tightened. "Doc, his lips are turning purple." "I'm aware," Brennan's voice was terse. "Now if you'll—" The monitor alarm screamed. "Oxygen saturation 78%. Emma took one step forward, then stopped. Her pulse hammering, the scar above her eyebrow throbbing with phantom pain. She'd sworn 18 months ago she was done. Done with the blood, the pressure, the impossible choices. But that SEAL on the table was 24 years old. The same age as Corporal Matthews, who died in her arms in Helmand because the medevac took 12 minutes instead of 10. She took another step. Dr. Donovan noticed. "Thorne, we don't need..." "Fifth intercostal space, mid-axillary line." Emma's voice cut through, quiet but clear. 1% lidocaine if you have time." She paused. "You don't have time. Scalpel, Kelly clamp, 32 French chest tube." Brennan spun around. "Excuse me, I know the anatomy." "Then do it faster." Emma's voice had changed again, the apologetic softness gone. "His trachea is deviating. You have maybe 90 seconds before his heart stops." The bearded SEAL's eyes narrowed, studying Emma with the intensity of a threat assessment. She could feel his gaze taking in details. Her posture, her hands, the way she was reading the monitor without looking at it. "Who's that?" he asked Donovan. "A nurse," Donovan said, uncertainty in her voice. The SEAL's eyes didn't leave Emma. "No," he said flatly. "She's not." Brennan made the incision. Too shallow, too hesitant. The young SEAL's oxygen saturation hit 74%. Emma couldn't watch anymore. She crossed the distance to the trauma bay in 4 strides, her compact frame moving with predatory efficiency that made staff members step aside instinctively. She didn't ask permission. She grabbed a fresh Kelly clamp from the tray, shouldered Brennan out of the way, actually made him stumble backward, and plunged the clamp into the incision. "What the hell?" Brennan started. Emma spread the intercostal muscles with one smooth motion, creating a tunnel between the ribs. Then she took the chest tube from the tray and advanced it into the thoracic cavity with the practiced ease of someone who'd done this 100 times. In worse conditions, there was a rushing hiss of air as the trap pressure released. The young SEAL gasped, his chest expanding properly for the first time in minutes. The oxygen saturation began to climb. 78, 82, 88. Emma secured the tube with rapid sutures. The shrapnel scars on the backs of her hands caught the overhead light. She didn't notice. She was counting respirations, watching the chest rise and fall, ensuring equal expansion. "Sats 94%, the monitoring nurse whispered, respirations normalizing. Emma stepped back, no tremor in her grip, but her heart was racing. She'd just exposed herself. Again, twice in 1 hour. The bearded SEAL was staring at her. His eyes had widened slightly, recognition dawning in his expression like a sunrise. "Oh my God," he breathed. One word, one name, one call sign that Emma Thorne hadn't heard spoken aloud in 18 months. "Valkyrie." Emma's blood turned to ice. Every muscle in her body went rigid. The name hung in the air between them. Heavy, undeniable. The ghost she'd been running from finally given voice. "I'm sorry," she said, her voice carefully neutral, controlled. "I think you're confused. I'm just a nurse." The SEAL took a step closer. He was massive, at least 6'4". His presence filled the room, but he wasn't threatening. His expression was a mixture of shock and something that looked almost like reverence. "The suture pattern," he pointed at the chest tube. "That's a modified Lambert stitch. I've only seen one person use that variation." He gestured to the way she'd placed the tube. "And the way you did that, no hesitation, no measurement. You felt for the landmarks and just..." He shook his head slowly. "You operated on me 6 years ago. Kandahar. IED blast took half my team." His voice dropped. "You were covered in blood, and you had this tiny scar above your eyebrow, and you told me to stop being a baby because you'd had worse paper cuts." Emma's throat went dry. She remembered. A convoy ambush. 3 SEALs critically wounded. She'd operated for 14 hours straight in a sandstorm with failing generators. That wasn't me, Emma said, but her voice cracked. You're mistaken. Lieutenant Colonel Thorne, the SEAL said quietly. The rank was right. Call sign Valkyrie, you were a legend. He stopped, noticing her expression, the way she'd gone pale. Ma'am, what are you doing working as a nurse in Portland? The entire trauma bay had gone silent. Dr. Donovan, Dr. Brennan, the staff. Everyone was staring. Thorne, Donovan said slowly. Is this true? Are you a doctor? Before Emma could answer, a new voice cut through the tension. Where's my son? A man in a Navy dress uniform stepped into the trauma bay. He wore the eagles of a Navy captain, his chest covered in ribbons that told a story of decades of service. His face creased with worry. The bearded SEAL straightened immediately. Captain Blackwood, sir, your son is stable. This woman just saved his life. Captain Wesley Blackwood looked at Emma, really looked at her. His eyes traveled from her dirty blonde ponytail to her blood-stained scrubs to her hands still slightly raised from the procedure. His face went white. Dr. Thorne, he whispered, is that you? Emma closed her eyes. 2 people, 2 recognitions. Her cover was completely blown. I treated you too, she said quietly, looking at Captain Blackwood. Helmand Province 2021, gunshot wound to the abdomen. I remember because you kept trying to give orders from the operating table. Blackwood let out a shocked laugh. You told me to shut up or you'd put me under yourself. He looked at the bearded SEAL, then at his son, then back at Emma. What the hell are you doing here? Emma's voice was barely a whisper. Hiding. Dr. Brennan had recovered enough to be angry. This is insane. She's impersonating a nurse. She's committed fraud. She's a board-certified trauma surgeon with more combat experience than every doctor in this hospital combined. Captain Blackwood interrupted, his voice cold. And she just saved my son's life while you were fumbling with a chest tube tray. I'm calling security, Brennan said. You do that. The bearded SEAL's hand moved subtly toward his concealed carry. And I'll call JAG. Let's see who gets here first. Emma looked at the door. She could run, disappear again, change her name, move to another city, another state. But as she looked at the young SEAL on the table, Connor Blackwood breathing easily now, she knew it was too late. The ghost had been seen. And ghosts can't hide in the light. 02:45 hours. The hospital administrator's office had become a war room. Emma sat in a chair designed for comfort, but felt like an interrogation seat. Her blood-crusted hands folded in her lap. She hadn't been allowed to change out of her scrubs. Evidence, they'd called it, of what crime nobody seemed certain yet. Across the heavy oak desk sat Gerald Morrison, the hospital's CEO, a man whose greatest trauma was probably a disputed insurance claim. To his left, the hospital's attorney, Patricia Valdez, sharp-eyed, tapping her pen against a legal pad. To his right, Dr. Brennan, arms crossed, looking vindicated and furious in equal measure. Standing against the wall, refusing to sit, was the bearded SEAL. He'd identified himself as Chief Petty Officer Mason Wilder, call sign Havoc, and he'd made it clear he wasn't leaving. Dr. Donovan stood near the window, arms folded, watching Emma with an expression that mixed suspicion with something else. Understanding, maybe. Morrison cleared his throat. Let me make sure I understand. His voice dripped with corporate concern that masked legal panic. You've been working here for 6 months under the credentials of a registered nurse. But you're actually, he consulted a paper, a former lieutenant colonel in the U.S. Army Medical Corps with a specialty in trauma surgery. Former, Emma said quietly. I resigned my commission 18 months ago. But you didn't resign your medical license. Valdez interjected. I checked. Your license is still active in multiple states, including Oregon. She made a note. So technically, you're a physician working as a nurse, which isn't illegal. Unusual, but not illegal. Brennan leaned forward. She performed 2 invasive procedures without authorization. She assaulted me, actually pushed me out of the way, and she violated patient consent protocols. Patient consent. Chief Wilder spoke up, his voice dangerously quiet. My teammate was dying. She got consent from me, his team leader. That's how it works in combat medicine. The ranking member present makes the call. This isn't combat, Brennan snapped. No, Wilder interrupted. It's not, because in combat, incompetent officers get people killed. Here they just get transferred to radiology. The office door opened. Dr. Donovan entered carrying a tablet. She looked exhausted, her surgical cap still on, her face grave. The GSW patient just came out of surgery, Donovan announced. The hepatic trauma was worse than we thought. Grade 4 laceration. He lost 4 liters of blood on the table. She looked at Emma. He's stable now, critical but stable. Morrison cleared his throat. That's excellent news, but it doesn't change. I'm not finished. Donovan's voice was sharp. She held up the tablet. I pulled the security footage from the trauma bay. The timestamps are very interesting. She turned the tablet to face the room. The video showed Emma's intervention with the construction worker, but Donovan had annotated it with medical notes. From the moment she clamped the femoral artery to the moment we had a viable pulse was 4 minutes and 32 seconds, Donovan narrated. The vascular surgeon reviewed the footage. He said the technique she used, blind clamping in a shredded vessel, is something he wouldn't attempt without direct visualization. She paused. The failure rate is over 70%, but she did it perfectly. Donovan swiped to the next video, the chest tube placement. Petty Officer Blackwood's oxygen saturation was at 74% when she intervened. Dr. Brennan, you were still preparing your sterile field. She looked directly at Brennan. The medical literature says that at that saturation level, with the tracheal deviation visible on the footage, the patient had approximately 2 minutes before cardiac arrest. Donovan's voice was cold. She placed that tube in 45 seconds. I timed it. The room went silent. So what are you saying? Valdez asked carefully. I'm saying that Dr. Emma Thorne, or whatever her real name is, saved 2 lives today using skills that most trauma surgeons don't possess, Donovan said. And I'm saying that if we punish her for it, we're idiots. Brennan shot to his feet. She made me look incompetent. No, Donovan's voice was ice. You made yourself look incompetent. She just showed us what competence looks like. Emma finally spoke. I never meant to practice medicine. Her voice quiet but steady. I took the nursing job because I thought I could help people without the responsibility of being a surgeon, without making life and death decisions. She looked at her scarred hands. But I can't watch people die when I know I can save them. I tried. I failed. Morrison leaned back in his chair. Why did you leave the military? It was the question everyone wanted answered. Emma was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was distant, as if she were reading someone else's story. Helmand Province, August 2021. We were operating a forward surgical team in an area that was supposed to be secure. She paused. It wasn't. Her jaw tightened. Insurgents attacked while I was in the middle of a thoracotomy on a 19-year-old rifleman. Rockets, small arms fire, the whole fight. Emma's eyes were somewhere else now, somewhere dark. I finished the surgery under fire, saved the kid. Another pause, longer this time. But while I was operating on him, 3 wounded came in that I couldn't get to. Her voice cracked. They died waiting. I chose 1 life and 3 others ended because of that choice. That's combat triage, Wilder said gently. You can't save everyone. I know. Emma's eyes refocused on the present. But knowing doesn't make it hurt less. So I left. I thought I could escape those choices. Be invisible. Let someone else decide who lives and who dies. Dr. Donovan's voice was soft. But you can't, can you? Emma shook her head. Apparently not. The door opened again. This time Captain Blackwood entered, now in civilian clothes, his face less strained than before. My son is awake, he said. He asked who saved him. I told him the truth. He looked at Emma. He wants to thank you personally, Dr. Thorne. I'm not a doctor anymore, Emma said automatically. The hell you're not, Blackwood replied, and we both know it. Valdez tapped her pen again. Legally, this is a minefield. If we acknowledge she's a physician, we open liability questions. If we fire her for misrepresentation, those patients' families could claim we terminated the person who saved their loved ones. She looked at Morrison. If we keep her as a nurse, we're deliberately underutilizing a resource. Morrison turned to Emma. What do you want to do, Dr. Thorne? Emma looked around the room. At Donovan, who'd defended her. At Wilder, who'd recognized her. At Captain Blackwood, whose son was alive because she couldn't stay hidden. I want to go home, she said honestly. I want to disappear again. She paused. But I know that's not an option anymore. No, Donovan agreed. It's not. The local news already has the story. Mysterious nurse saves lives with advanced surgical skills. Your face is on 3 different channels. Emma closed her eyes. Of course it was. Morrison made a decision. Here's what's going to happen. Officially, we're conducting an internal review. Unofficially, Dr. Donovan is going to recommend that we hire you as an attending trauma surgeon. Full credentials, full privileges. Emma started. You don't have a choice, Morrison interrupted. Because if you walk out of here, every news outlet in the country is going to hunt you down to ask why a decorated military surgeon is hiding as a nurse. He leaned forward. You'll never have peace. But if you stay here, work here legitimately, we can control the narrative. War hero returns to medicine. Feel-good story. Done. It was a trap wrapped in an opportunity. But Emma recognized the truth in it. And Dr. Brennan, she asked. Brennan's face was red. I'm the chief resident. I'm not working under her. You're right, Donovan said. You're not. You're transferring to radiology, effective immediately. You can't. I can, Morrison said, and I am. You nearly killed 2 patients today through hesitation and ego. Dr. Thorne saved them through skill and courage. You're a liability. She's an asset. Brennan looked like he wanted to argue, but Valdez was already sliding a transfer document across the desk. Sign, she said, or we review every case you've touched in the past year. Your choice. Brennan signed. He left the room without looking at Emma. Emma's phone buzzed. The burner. The one only 3 people in the world had the number for. Everyone in the room noticed. I need to take this, she said, standing. Excuse me. She stepped into the hallway, closed the door behind her, answered on the 3rd ring. Valkyrie. The voice on the other end was familiar, gravelly, the weight of command behind every word. General Raymond Kessler, her former commanding officer. That's not my call sign anymore, sir, Emma said quietly. Cut it, Thorne. Your face is all over the news. Mystery nurse performs battlefield surgery in Oregon Hospital. I had CNN playing in my office when I recognized you. His voice dropped. Do you have any idea what you've done? Emma leaned against the wall. I saved 2 lives, sir. You exposed yourself, Kessler snapped. We spent considerable resources making you disappear after Helmand. We buried your identity, your records, everything. You were supposed to stay hidden. I didn't ask for that protection, Emma said. I resigned. I wanted to leave it all behind. You can't leave it behind when you're a witness to a war crime, Colonel. Kessler's voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. The Helmand incident, the orphanage. You testified at the classified tribunal. The contractors you identified are still out there, and they have long memories and deep pockets. Emma's blood went cold. The orphanage. She'd spent 18 months trying not to think about it. The night insurgents allegedly attacked a civilian building. The night she'd arrived to find 37 dead children and evidence that contradicted the official story. The night she'd discovered American contractors had fired on the building to cover up an arms deal gone wrong. She'd testified. 3 contractors were dishonorably discharged. Their company, Blackwell Defense Solutions, lost a $1 billion Pentagon contract. But the company executives had never been prosecuted. They'd walked away with their fortunes intact and their reputations destroyed by her testimony. Sir, that was 2 years ago, Emma said. Why would they? Because yesterday the Department of Justice reopened the case, Kessler interrupted. New evidence? Financial records? They're going after the Blackwell executives for war crimes. He paused. And you're the star witness, again. Emma's hands started to shake. I'm out. I told the JAG lawyers I was done. You don't get to be done, Thorne. Not when... Kessler stopped mid-sentence. Hold on. I'm getting another call. Don't hang up. The line went silent. Emma counted her heartbeats. 30 seconds. 60. Kessler came back on. His voice had changed. Emma, where exactly are you right now? Cedar Valley Memorial, Portland. Why? Get out right now. His voice was urgent, commanding. Don't go to your apartment. Don't go anywhere predictable. I'm scrambling a security team, but they're 40 minutes out. Sir, what's happening? Blackwell knows you surfaced. We just intercepted chatter. They're sending a cleanup crew to your location. Kessler's voice was grave. They're going to make it look like a disgruntled patient or random violence. Emma, they're going to kill you and anyone near you to bury this. The phone went dead. Emma stood frozen for 3 seconds. Then her training kicked in. She shoved the phone in her pocket and opened the administrator's office door carefully, scanning the corridor. Normal activity. Nurses at their stations. A janitor mopping. Nothing suspicious. But trained killers wouldn't look suspicious. They'd look like hospital visitors, maintenance workers, paramedics. Emma walked back into Morrison's office. Every eye turned to her. Her face must have shown something, because Dr. Donovan stood immediately. What's wrong? Emma looked at Captain Blackwood, at Chief Wilder, at the people in this room who'd defended her, protected her, recognized her. I need you to evacuate this floor, she said, her voice calm, controlled, the voice of someone giving orders in a combat zone. Now, what? Morrison started. I don't have time to explain, but people are coming and they're not here to talk. Wilder's hand moved to his concealed carry. How many? I don't know. Enough. Emma walked to the window, looked down at the parking lot. 3 white vans were pulling into the emergency entrance. Men getting out, dressed like EMTs, but moving wrong. Too tactical, too synchronized. Emma's jaw set. They're already here. Yeah. Part 2, the hunted surgeon. 0247 hours. Emma stood at the window, watching the white vans in the parking lot below, the men moving with military precision. Not rushing, not panicking, just executing a plan they'd rehearsed a dozen times. Professional, calm, lethal. Behind her, the administrator's office had gone silent. Everyone staring. waiting for her to explain, to justify the sudden shift from corporate meeting to threat assessment. Emma's mind was already 5 moves ahead. 3 vans, standard configuration for a cleanup crew, probably 8 to 10 operators, maybe more. They'd have blueprints of the hospital, access to security systems, someone on the inside who'd cut the power at exactly the right moment. This wasn't improvised. This was a military operation. Thorne, Morrison's voice, uncertain. What exactly are you saying? Emma turned from the window. Her gray-blue eyes had changed. The submissive nurse was gone. What remained was something harder, colder. Something forged in places where hesitation meant death. I'm saying that in approximately 10 minutes, armed contractors are going to enter this hospital. They'll be dressed as emergency personnel. They'll have credentials. They'll look legitimate. She paused. And they're here to kill me, along with anyone who can identify them. Brennan laughed, nervous, disbelieving. That's insane. This is a hospital. They can't just... They can. Emma's voice cut through his denial like a scalpel. And they will. Chief Wilder was already moving. Phone out. Dialing. I need backup at Cedar Valley Memorial. Armed response. Now. He listened for a moment, his face darkened. How long? 15 minutes. We don't have 15 minutes. He hung up, looked at Emma. What's the play? Emma appreciated that. No questions about whether she was sure. No demands for proof. Just immediate trust and tactical readiness. We have 2 priorities, she said. Protect the patients and survive long enough for backup to arrive. She looked at Captain Blackwood. Your son, Torres, they're both post-op, critical. They can't be moved safely. Then we don't move them, Blackwood said, his voice carrying decades of command experience. We hold position. Dr. Donovan stepped forward. Emma, what aren't you telling us? Emma met her eyes, saw the understanding there, the recognition of someone who'd been in combat, who knew what it looked like when violence was coming. 2 years ago, I witnessed a war crime, testified against the contractors responsible. Their company lost everything. Emma's jaw tightened. Yesterday, the DOJ reopened the case. If I testify again, a lot of very powerful people go to prison. She gestured to the window. Those men down there, they're here to make sure I never get the chance. Morrison's face had gone pale. We should evacuate. Call the police. Let them handle. By the time police arrive, it'll be over, Emma said. These aren't criminals, Mr. Morrison. They're trained operators. Former military. They know exactly how to make this look like a gas leak or structural collapse or active shooter situation. She looked around the room. We fight or we die. Those are the only options. Valdez, the attorney, spoke up, her voice shaky but controlled. What do you need us to do? Emma felt something shift inside her. Something lifting slightly. Not gone, never gone, but manageable. Dr. Donovan, I need to talk to you privately right now. Donovan looked surprised but nodded. They stepped into the hallway. Emma closed the door. I need to know, Emma said. Can I trust you? Really trust you? Donovan was quiet for a moment. Then she did something unexpected. She rolled up her sleeve. Emma stared. A tattoo. Navy Medical Corps insignia. Below it, coordinates. 33.3152 degrees north, 44.3661 degrees east. Fallujah. And a date, October 17, 2007. I was there too, Donovan said quietly. Combat surgeon, USS Baton, attached to Marine units during the surge. She met Emma's eyes. I watched Marines die because politicians played games with rules of engagement. Saw good men bleed out while we waited for authorization to engage. Held boys who called for their mothers while I tried to stop arterial bleeding with my bare hands. Her voice hardened. I came home broken, hid in civilian medicine for 10 years. Pretended the war never happened. Became invisible. Donovan's green eyes were fierce now. It didn't heal me, Emma. It just delayed the pain, made it worse. Because every day I pretended to be less than I was, I died a little more inside. Emma felt something in her chest crack. This woman understood. Really understood. How did you... Emma started. Stop hiding. Donovan smiled grimly. I didn't. Not until tonight. Not until I watched you save that construction worker and realized we don't get to hide. Not when we have skills people need. Not when we can make a difference. She extended her hand. So here's my offer. Partners. Build this trauma department together. 2 ghosts becoming real again. 2 combat surgeons who refuse to let the war win. Emma looked at that hand, at the tattoo, at the understanding in Donovan's eyes, at the choice being offered. Hide and die slowly, or fight and live fully. She shook Donovan's hand. Partners. Donovan's grip was firm. Soldier's grip. Good. Now let's go protect some patients. They returned to Morrison's office. Emma's posture had changed. Straighter. More confident. The last vestiges of the submissive nurse burned away. Dr. Donovan and I will secure the ICU, Emma said. That's where they'll hit first. Torres and Blackwood are high-value targets if they know about the DOJ case. She looked at Morrison. You need to initiate Code Silver, hospital-wide lockdown, but do it quietly, no public announcements. We don't want to panic patients or tip off anyone on the inside. On the inside, Morrison's voice cracked. They cut the power remotely. That means they have access to hospital systems, which means someone here is helping them. Emma turned to Wilder. Chief, how many weapons do you have? Wilder pulled back his jacket, revealed a Glock 19 in a concealed holster, plus 2 spare magazines. Garrett's got the same. We're both licensed concealed carry. Not enough, Emma said, but it'll have to do. She looked at her hands, still stained with blood from saving the construction worker, from placing the chest tube in Connor Blackwood's chest. Hands that had saved lives tonight. Hands that might have to take them. Let's move. 0251 hour. The corridor outside Morrison's office was still normal. Night shift nurses at their stations, the soft beep of monitors, the artificial calm of a hospital at night. Emma walked fast, not running. Running would draw attention. Dr. Donovan kept pace beside her. Emma, her voice low, I need to know, are you sure about this? Emma didn't slow down. 6 years ago in Fallujah, did you ever get a feeling right before an attack like the air changed? Donovan was quiet for a moment. Yes. Do you feel it now? Another pause. Yes. Then you're sure too. They reached the ICU. Emma moved to the nurse's station. Ruth Zimmerman looked up. 55 years old, charge nurse, 20 years on this floor. Dr. Donovan, what's... Ruth, I need you to do something for me, Donovan said, her voice calm but urgent. And I need you to trust me without questions. Ruth's eyes narrowed. Then she nodded. I've worked with you for 10 years, Kate. I trust you. Lock down all patient rooms, battery backup on critical equipment, move any ambulatory patients to interior rooms, no windows. Ruth stood immediately. How long do I have? 5 minutes, maybe less. Ruth didn't waste time asking why. She just started moving, barking orders to her nurses, efficient, professional. Emma watched her work, felt gratitude for competent people who didn't need explanations to act. Wilder and Garrett Shaw, the other SEAL, arrived, both armed now, both moving with the easy confidence of men who'd been in firefights before. Torres and Blackwood are in rooms 12 and 14, Wilder said. Both stable but on vents. Can't be moved. Emma looked at the ICU layout. 2 rooms, both with windows facing the parking lot. Exactly where the contractors would breach. We hold here, she said. Make them come to us. Use the space. Limited entry points, choke points. She looked at Donovan. You ever fire a weapon? Navy qualified me on the M9, but that was 15 years ago. It comes back. Emma turned to Wilder. You have a backup piece. Wilder reached to his ankle, pulled a compact Glock 26, handed it to Emma. Grip first. Emma checked the chamber. Verified the magazine. 15 rounds, no spare. She tucked it into her waistband, the weight familiar, comforting in a way she'd forgotten. Positions, she said. They'll come through the windows, rappel from the roof. Fast rope, professional insertion. Garrett looked at her with new respect. You've done this before. I've defended positions before, Emma corrected. Never in a hospital, but the principles are the same. She looked around the ICU, at the nurses moving patients, at the SEALs checking their weapons, at Dr. Donovan standing beside her. We're not soldiers, Emma said quietly, but tonight we fight like we are. 0259 hours. The lights went out. Not a flicker, not a brownout, just instant, complete darkness. The main power, the backup generators, everything. For 3 seconds, the ICU was silent except for the soft whir of battery-powered ventilators. Then the emergency lighting kicked in. Dim, red, casting everything in the color of blood. They're coming, Emma whispered. Ruth's voice cut through the darkness. All patients secure. Battery backup operational. We've got 30 minutes minimum on the vents. More than we'll need, Emma said. She hoped that was true. Wilder positioned himself near room 12. Torres's room. Garrett took 14. Connor Blackwood's position. Dr. Donovan stood with Emma near the central nurses' station. The compact Glock held low. Professional grip. Finger off the trigger. She remembered her training. Emma's eyes adjusted to the red emergency lighting. Her hearing sharpened. Every sound amplified. The hum of ventilators. The soft beep of monitors. The distant wail of a patient in another wing. And then a new sound. Faint. Almost imperceptible. The scrape of boots on concrete. Outside, above them. Roof, Emma breathed. Wilder heard it too. Nodded. 30 seconds later, the window in room 14 exploded. Not from gunfire. From a breaching charge. Small. Precise. Just enough to shatter the reinforced glass and create an entry point. A canister tumbled through, spewing white smoke. Flashbang, Wilder yelled. Emma turned away, covered her ears, squeezed her eyes shut. The explosion was deafening. Even prepared, even turned away, the concussive force rattled her skull. Her vision whited out. Her ears rang. Through the smoke and the ringing, Emma saw shapes at the window. Ropes, tactical descent. The first contractor came through in a smooth combat roll. Submachine gun already raised. Black tactical gear. Balaclava. No identification. Completely anonymous. Garrett didn't hesitate. 2 shots. Center mass. The contractor went down. But 2 more were already coming through the window. Garrett engaged. His movements fluid. Trained. The small ICU room erupted in gunfire. Suppressed weapons making rapid coughing sounds. Muzzle flashes strobing in the darkness. Emma grabbed Donovan. With me, they moved toward room 12 as the window there exploded too. Another breaching charge. Another flashbang. Wilder was already firing. Controlled. Precise. 2-round bursts. 1 contractor down. Another taking cover behind medical equipment. Emma's tactical mind was screaming. They were being overwhelmed. The contractors would keep coming. Wave after wave. Until the SEALs ran out of ammunition or made a mistake. They needed to change the equation. "Mason," Emma shouted, "can you hold this room for 2 minutes?" Wilder fired twice more, didn't look at her. "Where are you going?" "To cut the head off the snake." Emma moved before he could argue, before she could second guess, before the fear could catch up to her training. She ran. 0303 hour. The corridor outside the ICU was chaos. Nurses hiding in patient rooms. Security guards with radios confused and overwhelmed. The hospital's emergency protocols had been designed for fires and natural disasters, not for military-grade tactical assault. Emma moved through the confusion like a ghost, her compact frame, her scrubs. In the red emergency lighting, she looked like just another panicked staff member. She reached the stairwell, pulled the door open slowly, listening. Footsteps, coming up. Multiple sets, heavy boots, tactical gear. Emma let the door close silently, pressed her back against the wall, counted to 3. Then grabbed a fire extinguisher from its mount. She waited. The stairwell door opened. 2 contractors, moving in a stack formation. Professional. Experienced. Emma didn't give them time to process. She pulled the pin on the fire extinguisher, sprayed white chemical foam directly into the lead contractor's face. He stumbled back, blind, disoriented. Emma swung the heavy metal canister, connected with his jaw, bone crunched. The second contractor raised his weapon. Emma was faster. She grabbed his gun arm, redirected, used his own momentum to slam him into the wall, once, twice, until his grip loosened. The weapon clattered to the floor. Emma picked it up. An MP5K, suppressed, 30-round magazine. She checked the chamber, verified the safety, flipped to semi-automatic. The first contractor was getting up, blood streaming from his broken jaw. Emma shot him twice. Center mass, clean, efficient. No hesitation, no remorse. The second contractor reached for a backup weapon. Emma shot him too. She stood in the stairwell, breathing hard, the Glock tucked back in her waistband, the MP5K held low and ready. 2 men dead at her feet. 2 men who'd come here to kill her, to kill innocent patients, to burn evidence of war crimes. Emma stepped over the bodies, kept moving. 0307 hour. 4th floor, patient rooms. Emma moved quickly, checking corners, scanning for threats. She heard shouting ahead, saw movement. 2 contractors clearing rooms, systematic, thorough, looking for her. Emma ducked into an empty patient room. The door barely closed when she heard them approach. Floor 3 secure, moving to 4. American accents. Professional terminology. These weren't foreign insurgents. They were Americans. Former military, probably contractors who'd served honorably before Blackwell Defense recruited them. Men who'd crossed a line. Men who'd chosen money over honor. Emma looked around the room. Standard setup, hospital bed, IV stand, medical gas panel on the wall. An idea formed. Desperate, dangerous, but it might work. She moved to the medical gas panel, opened the oxygen valve fully, then cracked the seal on the line. Pure O2 began flooding the room. Invisible, odorless, but highly flammable. Emma positioned herself behind the bathroom door, MP5K ready. Waited. The oxygen concentration climbed. 30 seconds. 45. The air in the room was now dangerously oxygen-rich. Any spark would cause combustion. The patient room door opened. A contractor entered, sweeping with his weapon. Professional, cautious. Emma fired a single round through the bathroom door, not at the contractor, at the floor, near the oxygen panel. The muzzle flash in the oxygen-saturated environment ignited instantaneously. The room exploded. Not a massive Hollywood fireball, but a sharp, violent combustion. A pressure wave that blew out the door, slammed the contractor backward into the corridor, knocked him off his feet. Emma had already moved, diving into the bathroom, covering her head. The shockwave passed over her, heat singeing the air. She stepped out through the smoke. The contractor was on the ground, disoriented, ears ringing. His tactical vest had protected him from the worst of it, but not from Emma. She shot him twice, then moved to the corridor. The second contractor was there, stunned by the explosion, trying to orient. Emma didn't give him the chance. 2 more rounds. He dropped. Emma continued to the stairwell. The sprinkler system had activated. Water raining down, the fire alarm screaming. Good. More confusion, more cover. She descended. 3rd floor, 2nd, moving fast. Her mind was ice cold now, running tactical calculations. The contractors had probably positioned their command vehicle near the emergency entrance, close enough for quick extraction, far enough to avoid immediate police response. White van, communications equipment, someone coordinating the assault. Take out the coordinator, sever the communications. The assault team loses tactical cohesion. Emma reached the 2nd floor landing, heard a voice on the radio. Target neutralized in ICU, wait, one still moving. Emma's blood froze. Which one, Wilder, Garrett, Donovan? Then a different voice. Calm, professional, familiar. Dr. Catherine Donovan, but not the composed attending physician Emma knew. This voice was harder, colder, the voice of a combat veteran who'd just killed. Radio Thorne, tell her the line holds. Tell her she's not alone. Emma felt relief flood through her. She keyed the radio she'd taken from the first contractor. Donovan, it's Thorne. Status. Static. Then Donovan's voice. ICU secure. 5 hostiles down. Wilder took a round in the vest. Bruised but functional. Torres and Blackwood still stable. A pause. Emma, how did You did what you had to do, Emma said firmly. We'll process it later. Right now, hold position. I'm taking out their command and control. Copy. And Emma? Yeah. Don't die. I need a co-director for this trauma program. Emma smiled grimly. Roger that. She continued down. Ground floor, the main corridor. Staff huddled in rooms. Security trying to establish order. The chaos of a hospital under attack. Emma moved through it all, invisible again. Just another person in scrubs. She reached the ambulance bay. Through the glass doors, she could see the parking lot. 3 white vans, 2 empty now. Their crews inside the hospital. The 3rd had its rear doors open. A faint glow from inside. Command vehicle. Emma checked the MP5K. 10 rounds left. Not enough for a sustained firefight. She'd have to be smart, fast, and very, very lucky. 0312 hour. The rain had started. Portland weather. Cold. Persistent. The kind of rain that soaked through everything. Emma moved along the edge of the parking lot, using parked cars for cover. The MP5K held low. Professional grip. She'd expected heavy security around the command van. Multiple contractors, overlapping fields of fire, professional defensive position. Instead, there was only one guard, standing outside, smoking, radio on his vest. Overconfident, arrogant, fatal mistake. Emma approached from his blind side, used the rain and darkness. Got within 10 feet before he sensed something. Turned. Too late. Emma shot him once, suppressed round barely audible over the rain. He dropped. She moved to the van's rear doors, listened, heard voices inside, equipment humming, the sound of someone coordinating an operation. Emma took a breath, then another. This was it, the moment. Once she entered that van, there was no going back, no more hiding, no more running. She thought about Helmand, about the orphanage, about 37 children who died because powerful men valued profit over lives. She thought about the construction worker, about Connor Blackwood, about all the lives she'd saved tonight, about the choice she'd made 18 months ago to disappear. And the choice she was making now to fight. Emma pulled the van door open. Fast, violent, decisive. One contractor inside, turning, reaching for his weapon. Emma was faster. Single shot. Center mass, he went down. She climbed into the van. Communications equipment, laptops, tactical displays showing hospital floor plans. The assault plan laid out in meticulous detail. And in the front passenger seat, turning to look at her with an expression that mixed shock with something else. Admiration, maybe. Or respect. A man in his late 50s, silver hair, expensive suit, completely incongruous with the violence surrounding him. Victor Blackwell, CEO of Blackwell Defense Solutions, the man whose company she'd destroyed, the man whose crimes she'd exposed. He smiled. Dr. Thorne, I expected more subtlety from Valkyrie. Emma kept the MP5K trained on him. Why are you here? Her voice was steady. CEOs don't do field work. Because this isn't just cleanup. Blackwell's smile widened. This is a demonstration. He reached slowly into his jacket. Emma's finger tightened on the trigger. Don't. Relax, doctor. I'm not armed. He pulled out a phone, showed her the screen. A timer. Counting down. 2 minutes, 30 seconds. 2:29. 2:28. What is that? Emma asked. But she already knew. Already felt the cold dread spreading through her chest. Thermite charges, Blackwell said pleasantly, planted on the East Wing's main structural supports, including your precious ICU. He gestured to the timer. When that reaches 0, the entire wing collapses. Everyone dies. Your patients, your doctor friend, those SEALs, all buried in rubble. Emma's mind raced. Thermite charges, military-grade incendiaries, designed to burn through steel, through concrete, through anything. And once activated, nearly impossible to stop. It'll look like a tragic structural failure during the power outage, Blackwell continued. Old building, inadequate maintenance, very sad, very tragic. He leaned back in his seat. And even if you somehow survive, you'll be buried in investigations for years. No trial, no testimony, no justice. Emma's jaw clenched. Turn it off. Or what? Blackwell's voice was amused. You'll shoot me. You're a doctor, Dr. Thorne. You save lives. That's what you do. That's who you are. Emma thought about Hellman, about operating under fire, about choosing who lived and who died, about the 37 children whose small bodies she'd tried desperately to revive, knowing they were already gone, knowing she'd failed them, about the oath she'd taken, first do no harm, about the oath she'd taken before that, to support and defend, about who she was before she became a doctor, a soldier, a warrior, someone who understood that sometimes the only way to protect the innocent was to destroy the guilty. No tremor in her grip. The timer read 1 minute 45 seconds. Emma looked Victor Blackwell in the eyes. You're wrong about me, she said quietly. She raised the MP5K, aimed at his head. I was a warrior before I was a surgeon, and I learned a long time ago that some people can't be saved. She paused. They can only be stopped. Emma pulled the trigger. The suppressed round cracked past Blackwell's ear, missing by inches. Deliberate. Controlled. The sound was deafening in the enclosed van. Blackwell flinched, his composure finally cracking, his hands coming up instinctively. Emma pressed the hot suppressor against his temple. That was a warning, she said, her voice cold as winter. The next one goes through your skull. Now turn it off. The timer read 1 minute 30 seconds. 1:29. 1:28. Blackwell's hands were shaking now. All his arrogance, all his control, stripped away by the proximity of death. By the realization that this woman, this surgeon he'd underestimated, was willing to kill him, had already killed tonight, would kill again without hesitation. You don't understand what you're doing, Blackwell said, his voice unsteady. This is bigger than you, bigger than me. If you testify, you don't just take me down. He swallowed hard. Senators, Pentagon officials, Fortune 500 CEOs, an entire network collapses. And they'll come after you, after everyone you care about. They'll never stop. Emma's expression didn't change. Good, let them come. She pressed the suppressor harder against his temple. 1 minute 15 seconds, Mr. Blackwell. Then everyone in that building dies, including people I care about, people who stood with me tonight. Her voice dropped to a whisper. People who reminded me who I am. 1 minute 10. You have a choice, Emma said. Disable those charges and face trial. Or watch me execute you right here, right now, and let God sort out your war crimes. Blackwell stared at her, seeing something in her eyes he hadn't expected. Not mercy, not compassion, just cold absolute determination. The will of someone who'd made impossible choices before, who'd lived with them, who'd do it again if necessary. His hand moved slowly to the phone. Trembling. 55 seconds. He pulled up a command screen, typed in a code. The timer stopped. 15 seconds remaining. Emma didn't lower the weapon. Didn't relax. Didn't trust. Code red abort, Blackwell whispered into his radio. Emma ripped the phone from his hand, smashed it on the van floor, then grabbed the radio, destroyed that too. Sirens in the distance now, growing closer. Federal vehicles, the cavalry finally arriving. But Emma Thorne had already won. She'd stopped running, stopped hiding, and in doing so, she'd saved everyone, including herself. Emma backed out of the van, the MP5K still trained on Blackwell. She could see black SUVs pulling into the parking lot, federal agents pouring out. A familiar figure stepped from the lead vehicle, General Raymond Kessler, his face grim, but something else there too, pride. Valkyrie, he called, stand down, we've got him. Emma lowered the weapon slowly. Federal agents swarmed the van, pulled Blackwell out, cuffed him. He looked at Emma as they led him away. You just destroyed everything, he said. All of it. For what justice? There's no such thing. Emma met his eyes one final time. Maybe not, she said quietly, but there's accountability. And today that's enough. She watched them take him away, then turned and walked back toward the hospital, toward the people who'd stood with her, toward the life she'd been running from, toward whatever came next. Behind her, the rain continued to fall, washing away the blood, but not the memory, never the memory. Part 3, Rise of the Valkyrie, 0318 hour. The rain had turned the parking lot into a mirror. Red and blue lights from federal vehicles reflected off the wet asphalt, creating a kaleidoscope of law enforcement presence that Emma watched from a distance. She stood near the ambulance bay entrance, still holding the MP5K, still covered in blood that wasn't hers, still breathing hard from the adrenaline crash that always came after combat. General Raymond Kessler walked toward her, 60 years old but still moving like a man who'd spent decades in the field, his face weathered, his eyes sharp. He stopped 3 feet away, looked at the submachine gun in her hands, at the blood on her scrubs, at the expression on her face. You look like hell, Colonel, he said. I'm not a colonel anymore, sir. The hell you're not, Kessler's voice was firm. Once a soldier, always a soldier. Tonight proved that. Emma looked past him, at the federal agents processing the scene, at the white vans being cordoned off with yellow tape, at Victor Blackwell being loaded into an armored transport vehicle. How much did you know? She asked quietly. About the attack, Kessler's jaw tightened. We intercepted chatter 6 hours ago, but we couldn't get assets in place fast enough. He paused. I called to warn you, to get you out. You chose to stay. People would have died. People almost did die, including you. Emma finally looked at him. But they didn't, and Blackwell's in custody, and you have everything you need for the prosecution. Kessler nodded slowly. The van was wired, audio and video. We have his confession, the thermite charges, the conspiracy, all of it. He gestured to the hospital. 8 contractors dead, all positively identified as Blackwell Defense Solutions employees. Former military, former patriots who chose money over honor. His voice carried disgust. They knew what they signed up for. Emma set the MP5K down on a nearby gurney, no tremor in her hands, but she could feel the delayed reaction starting, the PTSD catching up to the adrenaline. I killed 4 of them, she said, her voice flat, clinical. Maybe 5, I lost count. You defended innocent lives against armed aggressors. Kessler's tone left no room for doubt. That's not murder, that's duty. Emma closed her eyes, saw the contractors' faces, the moment of recognition before she pulled the trigger. The way they fell. Saw other faces too, older, from different wars, different choices. Emma, Kessler's voice was gentle now. Look at me. She opened her eyes. You did the right thing tonight. Not the easy thing, not the clean thing, but the right thing. He gestured to the hospital. How many patients are in there right now? How many would have died if that wing collapsed? Emma did the math automatically. 73 plus staff plus visitors. And how many died tonight? 8 contractors who came here to commit murder. Exactly. Kessler's voice was firm. You saved 73 lives at the cost of 8 who forfeited their right to live the moment they attacked this hospital. He paused. That's not something to feel guilty about. That's something to be proud of. Emma wasn't sure she could feel pride, not yet, maybe not ever, but she could feel satisfaction. Justice even. The door behind her opened. Dr. Donovan emerged. She'd changed scrubs, washed the blood off her hands, but her eyes still carried the weight of what she'd done. What they'd both done. Emma, Donovan said, they need you inside, the families. They want to thank you. Emma shook her head. I'm not. You are. Donovan's voice was gentle but firm. You saved their loved ones. They deserve to say thank you. And you deserve to hear it. Emma looked at Kessler. Go, he said. I'll handle the federal circus. But tomorrow we need to talk. About testimony, about protection, about what comes next. Emma nodded. Followed Donovan back inside. 0545 hours. The sky was beginning to lighten, that gray pre-dawn that came before sunrise. Emma sat in the ICU break room, a cup of coffee she hadn't touched going cold in front of her. The hospital had been cleared, the contractors' bodies removed, the thermite charges disabled by EOD teams, the power restored, everything returning to normal, except nothing would ever be normal again. The door opened. Chief Mason Wilder entered. He'd changed into civilian clothes, a Navy SEAL t-shirt and jeans, his tactical vest and weapons secured somewhere. He sat down across from Emma. For a long moment, neither spoke. Then Wilder broke the silence. 6 years ago, Kandahar. You saved my life during a mortar attack. Operated on me while the compound was under fire. Emma remembered. Vaguely, there had been so many wounded, so many close calls. I told you that night, Wilder continued, that if you ever needed anything, all you had to do was ask. That Rangers take care of their own. He paused. Tonight I wanted to repay that debt, but you didn't need me. You didn't need anyone. Emma shook her head. I needed all of you. If you and Garrett hadn't held the ICU, if Dr. Donovan hadn't fought alongside you, those contractors would have killed everyone. She met his eyes. I couldn't have done this alone, and I shouldn't have tried for the past 18 months. Wilder smiled slightly. So what now? You stay here, take that director position. I don't know, Emma said honestly. Part of me wants to disappear again. Go somewhere quiet, somewhere safe. And the other part, Emma looked at her hands. Surgeon's hands, soldier's hands, both, neither, something in between. The other part remembers what it felt like tonight. To save lives, to fight for something that mattered, to stand with people who had my back. She paused. To be myself again. The door opened again. Captain Wesley Blackwood entered. He'd been at his son's bedside all night, watching Connor breathe, watching the monitors, making sure. Dr. Thorne, he said, Connor's awake. He's asking for you. Emma stood, followed Blackwood to room 14. Connor Blackwood looked younger than 24 lying in that hospital bed. Pale, weak, but alive. The chest tube Emma had placed was doing its job, his lungs expanding properly, his oxygen saturation normal. Hey, Doc, he said, his voice rough from the breathing tube. Hey, yourself. Emma approached the bedside, checked his vitals automatically. Professional assessment. Dad told me what you did, how you saved me, how you saved everyone. Connor's eyes were serious. Thank you doesn't seem like enough. Emma shook her head. You don't owe me thanks. You did your job. I did mine. My job got me shot, Connor said, a weak smile. Your job saved my life twice. Once with the chest tube, once by stopping those contractors. He reached out, took her hand. I'm alive because you couldn't walk away. Because even after everything you've been through, you still fight for people. Emma felt something crack inside her. The wall she'd built around her emotions. The distance she'd maintained. I'm alive because you became a SEAL to protect people, she said quietly. Because you took shrapnel for your team. Because men like you still believe in honor and duty and sacrifice. She squeezed his hand. We protect each other. That's what we do. Captain Blackwood watched from the doorway. Something in his expression that Emma couldn't quite read. Pride, gratitude, understanding. Dr. Thorne, he said, when this is over, when the trial is done, I want you to know that the Navy takes care of its own. If you need anything at all, you call me. Emma nodded. Slowly the pieces were falling into place. Not healing, not yet, but maybe the beginning of healing. Maybe the first step towards something better. 3 months later, Janvier 2025, Federal Courthouse, Portland. The courtroom was packed. Media in the back, military brass in the gallery, federal prosecutors at their tables, and in the defendant's chair, Victor Blackwell. He'd aged in 3 months, his silver hair whiter, his face more lined. The expensive suit couldn't hide the weight loss, the stress. Emma sat in the witness box, navy suit, hair in a professional bun, no longer hiding, no longer invisible. Just Dr. Emma Thorne, trauma surgeon, combat veteran, witness to war crimes. The prosecutor, a woman named Sarah Mendoza, stood before her. Dr. Thorne, please describe for the jury the events of August 15th, 2021. Emma took a breath. She'd been dreading this moment for 3 months. The moment when she'd have to relive Helmand, to speak the truth aloud in a public forum, to make it real in a way it hadn't been when it was classified testimony in a SEAL tribunal. But she'd also been preparing for it, with Dr. Donovan, with therapists, with the people who'd stood beside her that night in the hospital. I arrived at the orphanage at 23:40 hours local time, Emma began, her voice steady, clear. The building was on fire. There were casualties, 37 children. She paused. The official report claimed insurgent attack, RPG strike, but the evidence contradicted that narrative. Mendoza approached, held up a photograph. Is this one of the photographs you took that night? Emma looked at it, felt her stomach turn, but kept her voice level. Yes, it shows bullet trajectory. The rounds came from outside the building, but the angle was wrong for ground-based insurgent fire. Another photograph. And this, shell casings, .223 Remington, standard issue for American military and contractors. Not AK-47, not insurgent weapons. Emma's voice hardened. The children weren't killed by insurgents. They were killed by American contractors attempting to destroy evidence of an illegal arms deal. The courtroom erupted. Murmurs, gasps. The judge banged her gavel. Order. Mendoza let the moment breathe, then continued. Dr. Thorne, how can you be certain these rounds came from American weapons? I'm a combat surgeon. I've treated thousands of gunshot wounds. I know the difference between 7.62 AK rounds and 5.56 NATO rounds. Emma met the jury's eyes. Those children were killed with American weapons by American contractors to cover up crimes committed in America's name. Blackwell's defense attorney, an expensive shark named Thomas Crane, stood for cross-examination. Dr. Thorne, you testified that you suffer from PTSD. Is that correct? Yes. And PTSD can cause hallucinations, false memories, confusion. Emma's jaw tightened. It can, in some cases. So how can this jury trust your memory of that night? How can we be certain you didn't imagine these shell casings, these trajectories? Emma had been prepared for this. Because I photographed everything. Because I collected physical evidence. Because I wasn't the only witness. She looked directly at Crane. And because I have PTSD precisely because I witnessed this truth and cannot forget it. The nightmares, the flashbacks, the hypervigilance, all of it stems from knowing what happened and being unable to save those children. Her voice dropped. PTSD isn't making me remember things that didn't happen. It's preventing me from forgetting things that did. The jury was riveted. Crane tried another angle. Dr. Thorne, you killed 4 men 3 months ago during the hospital attack. Doesn't that suggest a certain propensity for violence? Mendoza shot to her feet. Objection relevance. Goes to credibility or honor. The judge considered. I'll allow it, but tread carefully, counselor. Emma met Crane's eyes. I killed 4 armed contractors who were attempting to murder innocent patients and staff, who had planted thermite charges to collapse a hospital wing, who were acting on orders from your client. She didn't blink. I would do it again. Crane smiled, thought he had her. So you admit to being willing to use lethal force. I admit to being willing to protect innocent lives, by any means necessary. Emma's voice was steel. Just as I tried to protect those 37 children. Just as I've spent my entire adult life protecting people who couldn't protect themselves. She leaned forward slightly. Your client ordered their deaths. I'm here to make sure he answers for it. The jury was completely focused now, several nodding. Crane changed tactics, softer, almost sympathetic. Dr. Thorne, you mentioned PTSD. Do you take medication for it? Yes, when needed. And these medications, do they affect your memory, your perception? Emma saw where he was going, smiled slightly. They help me function. They don't create false memories. But how can you be certain? Because I'm not the only witness, Emma's voice cut through. There were other medics there, other soldiers. They saw the same evidence, took the same photographs. She leaned forward. And because your client confessed, 3 months ago, in that van, on tape, we have him admitting to the lithium conspiracy, to ordering the orphanage attack, to covering it up. The courtroom erupted. Blackwell's face went pale. Crane tried to recover. That confession was obtained under duress. I held a gun to his head, Emma agreed calmly, because he'd planted thermite charges to collapse a hospital wing, to kill 73 patients and staff. She looked at the jury. I gave him a choice. Disable the charges and confess. Or die and let everyone else die with him. He chose to live, he chose to talk. That's not duress, that's consequences. One juror actually smiled, quickly suppressed it. Crane was floundering now. Your Honor, I move to strike. Denied, the judge said. The witness may continue. Emma looked directly at Blackwell. You ordered the deaths of 37 children for money, for mining rights, for power. Her voice was steel. I can live with giving you the choice to confess. Can you live with what you chose to do? Blackwell looked away. Crane had no more questions. The testimony continued for another hour. Emma detailing the evidence, the cover-up, the conspiracy that stretched from Afghanistan to the Pentagon to Fortune 500 boardrooms. When she finally stepped down, she felt lighter. The truth was out, all of it. 2 weeks later, the verdict came back on a Tuesday. Emma wasn't in the courtroom. She'd returned to Cedar Valley Memorial, to work, to patients, to the life she was slowly rebuilding. But Dr. Donovan found her in the ICU. They're reading the verdict. Conference room has a TV. Emma followed her. The conference room was packed. Nurses, doctors, staff who'd been there that night, who'd fought alongside her, who'd survived. Ruth Zimmerman, Emily Hayes. The TV showed the courtroom. The jury foreman stood. In the matter of United States versus Victor Blackwell on the charge of conspiracy to commit war crimes, we find the defendant guilty. The courtroom erupted. On the charge of conspiracy to commit murder, guilty. On the charge of obstruction of justice, guilty. Guilty, guilty, guilty. 40 counts, every single one. Emma felt Dr. Donovan's hand on her shoulder. You did it, Donovan said quietly. You brought him down. Emma watched as federal marshals led Blackwell away in handcuffs, his expensive suit, his silver hair, his face expressionless. Not just him, Emma said, the whole network. Because over the past 3 months, 40 co-conspirators had been indicted, 12 Pentagon officials, 7 members of Congress, 21 defense contractor executives. The biggest military corruption case in American history. All because one surgeon couldn't walk away from the truth. 2 months later, March 2025, Helmand Province, Afghanistan. Emma hadn't planned to return. But when the rebuilt orphanage sent the invitation would Dr. Thorne attend the dedication ceremony, she couldn't refuse. The flight was long, military transport to Bagram, then helicopter to Helmand, the same route she'd taken 3 years ago. But everything was different now. The orphanage stood where the crater had been. New construction, bright paint, solar panels on the roof, a garden where rubble once lay. And in the courtyard, 37 trees, one for each child. Small plaques beneath each tree, names, ages, dreams cut short. Emma walked among them slowly, reading each name, each life stolen. Amina, age 7, loved to draw. Hassan, age 5, wanted to be a doctor. Zara, age 9, taught her siblings to read. On and on, 37 stories, 37 futures erased. Emma knelt before one tree, the smallest. A girl named Layla, 4 years old. She'd been the first body Emma found that night, still holding a doll. I'm sorry, Emma whispered. I'm so sorry I couldn't save you. The weight pressed down, all of it. 3 years of carrying these names, these faces, this failure. But I made them pay, she continued, voice stronger. Blackwell, his network, everyone who hurt you, they're in prison. They'll die there. She stood, looked at all 37 trees, and I built something in your memory, a place that trains people to protect children like you, to fight for the innocent, to never let this happen again. Behind her footsteps, she turned. The orphanage director, an Afghan woman named Amira, 50s, kind eyes, survivor strength. Dr. Thorne, Amira said, thank you for coming. The children, the new children, they wanted to meet the woman who avenged the old ones. Emma looked at the orphanage. Through the windows, she saw children, playing, learning, living. Not the 37 who died, but 37 new lives, given a chance because of the settlement money, because of justice. They didn't die for nothing, Amira said softly. Their deaths exposed evil, stopped it from claiming more victims. Emma's throat was tight. That doesn't bring them back. No, but it honors them, and that's all we can do for the dead. Amira handed Emma something, a photograph. The 37 children, taken a week before the attack, smiling, innocent, alive. Keep this, Amira said. Remember them, but also remember you gave them justice. Not many victims get that. Emma held the photograph, looked at those 37 faces one last time. Not today, she whispered, the phrase that had become her mantra. Not today will you be forgotten. She tucked the photograph into her jacket, over her heart, turned to leave, but paused at the gate, looked back at the 37 trees. Growing strong, reaching toward the sky, living memorials to children who couldn't. Emma saluted, military precision, final respect, then walked away. Not running this time, just moving forward, carrying them with her, but carrying them with purpose. 2 months later, July 2025, the Valkyrie Center for Combat Medicine. Grand opening. The sun was brilliant. Portland summer at its finest. 80 degrees, clear sky. The kind of day that made people remember why they lived in the Pacific Northwest. Emma stood on a small stage. Behind her a banner. The Valkyrie Center for Combat Medicine. Grand opening. Beside her, Dr. Donovan. Both wearing white coats now, not scrubs. Physicians, directors, teachers. In the audience faces Emma had come to know well. Chief Mason Wilder in dress uniform, Garrett Shaw beside him, Captain Wesley Blackwood and his son Connor, fully recovered, General Raymond Kessler, Ruth Zimmerman, Emily Hayes, and in the front row, Robert Martinez, the construction worker. The first life Emma had saved that night, fully recovered, walking without assistance. He caught her eye, nodded. She nodded back. Emma stepped to the microphone. For 18 months, she began. I believed that hiding would heal my wounds. That if I disappeared, if I made myself small and invisible, if I stopped making the hard choices, the trauma would fade. She paused. I was wrong. The crowd was silent, listening. Healing doesn't come from hiding. It doesn't come from running. It doesn't come from pretending to be less than we are. Emma looked at the faces watching her. Healing comes from facing our past, from accepting what we've done and what's been done to us, from transforming pain into purpose. She gestured to the building behind her. This center exists because of pain, My pain, your pain, the collective trauma of everyone who's served, who's seen combat, who's made impossible choices. Her voice grew stronger, but it also exists because of purpose. The purpose to train the next generation, to pass on what we've learned, to make sure that when their critical moment comes, they're ready. Emma looked at Emily Hayes, at the young nurse who'd defended her in the break room, who'd asked to learn. We're going to teach them more than just medical skills. We're going to teach them how to think under pressure, how to make decisions when there are no good options, how to live with those decisions. She paused. And most importantly, we're going to teach them that they're not alone, that we're here, that we remember, that we understand. The crowd erupted in applause. Standing ovation. Emma felt tears on her cheeks, didn't bother to hide them. This was healing, not the absence of pain, but the presence of purpose. Emma stepped back. Dr. Donovan moved forward with oversized scissors. Together they cut the ribbon. The Valkyrie Center was open. 4 hours later, Emma's office was small but functional. Desk, computer, bookshelves lined with medical texts and tactical manuals. Photos on the wall. Hellman team, younger Emma, harder eyes. The trauma bay save, construction worker. First moment of revelation. Connor Blackwood's chest tube, the moment she stopped hiding. The 37 children, smiling in the photograph from the orphanage. The Valkyrie Center ribbon cutting. Today, this moment. Emma sat at her desk. Paperwork spread before her. Curriculum planning, budget proposals. The mundane work of building something lasting. Her phone rang. General Kessler. Valkyrie, he said, no preamble. We have a situation. Emma smiled slightly. She'd been expecting this call, or one like it. What kind of situation, General? Category 5 hurricane hit Florida 6 hours ago. Major casualties, infrastructure collapse. They need a combat medical team. Kessler paused. They need someone who knows how to operate in chaos, who can make the hard calls, who can train local staff on the fly. Emma looked at the photos on her wall, at the journey that had brought her here. From Hellman to hiding to fighting to building. How soon do you need us? She asked. Wheels up in 90 minutes. Andrews Air Force Base. Us. You're a director now. That means you have a team. Emma thought about Dr. Donovan, about the residents she'd been training, about the nurses who'd fought beside her. I'll make the calls. We'll be there. Emma, Kessler's voice softened. You don't have to keep doing this. You've earned the right to step back, to rest. Emma looked at her hands. Steady, strong, scarred. I've been resting for 18 months, General. It didn't work. This works. She stood. Besides, someone has to show these young medics what combat medicine really looks like. Kessler laughed. Once a soldier, always a soldier, Emma finished. See you at Andrews, sir. She hung up. Started making calls. 90 minutes later, the tarmac at Andrews was organized chaos. Military transport aircraft, medical equipment being loaded, teams assembling. Emma arrived with Dr. Donovan. Emily Hayes, 3 residents from the Valkyrie Center. All volunteers, all trained. All ready. Chief Wilder was there too. Full gear. Team of SEALs. Heard you might need security, he said. Emma smiled. We're flying into a disaster zone, not a war zone. Same skill set. He wasn't wrong. They boarded the C-130. Strapped in, the engines roared to life. Emma sat in the webbing seat, eyes closed, listening to the familiar sounds. The vibration, the anticipation. She'd spent 18 months running from this feeling, and now she was running toward it, by choice, on her terms. Dr. Donovan sat beside her. You okay? She asked. Emma opened her eyes. Yeah, I am. And for the first time in 3 years, she meant it. 3 days later, Florida disaster zone. The medical tent smelled like sweat and blood and disinfectant. Familiar, almost comforting in its horror. Emma had been operating for 16 hours straight. Crush injuries, lacerations, infections from contaminated water, the predictable aftermath of natural disaster. But she wasn't alone. Dr. Donovan worked beside her. Efficient, skilled, a partner in every sense. Emily Hayes assisted, learning, growing, becoming the kind of nurse Emma had once been. The residents rotated through, 12-hour shifts, controlled chaos, real-world training no classroom could provide. And through it all, Emma felt something she hadn't felt in years. Peace, not the absence of struggle, but the presence of purpose. A young paramedic, barely 25, approached her between surgeries. Dr. Thorne, I just wanted to say thank you for being here, for teaching us. Emma looked at him, saw herself at that age, idealistic, scared, determined. What's your name? She asked. Marcus, ma'am, Marcus Reed. Well, Marcus, you don't need to thank me. This is what we do. We show up, we do the work, we save who we can. She paused. And then we teach the next generation to do the same. Marcus nodded, started to walk away. then turned back. Ma'am, is it true what they say that you're Valkyrie, the combat surgeon from Hellman? Emma was quiet for a moment. 3 years ago, she would have denied it. Hidden, disappeared. Now she met his eyes. Yes, I'm Valkyrie. Marcus smiled. That's incredible. We studied your field operations in paramedic school. You're a legend. Emma shook her head. I'm not a legend. I'm just a surgeon who refused to quit, who kept showing up even when it was hard, even when it hurt. She looked around the medical tent, at the patients, at the staff, at the chaos and the healing happening simultaneously. Anyone can do what I do. It just takes commitment and the willingness to carry the weight. Marcus considered that. How do you carry it? The weight of all the decisions, all the people you couldn't save. Emma thought about Helmand, about the 3 casualties who died while she saved 1 rifleman, about 37 children, about 18 months of running, about the choice to stop running. You carry it together, she said finally. You find people who understand, who've been there, who can share the burden. She gestured to Dr. Donovan, to Emily, to the team. You don't have to carry it alone, and you shouldn't try. 2 weeks later, Cedar Valley Memorial Hospital, the Valkyrie Center. Emma stood at the front of the simulation lab, 20 students, mix of residents, nurses, paramedics, all watching, all learning. Most of you will never see combat, she said, but all of you will face a situation where everything goes wrong, where the patient is dying, where protocol doesn't work, where you have to make a choice. She paused. Follow the rules and watch them die, or break the rules and maybe save them. A hand raised. Young resident, female, maybe 28. How do you make that choice? Emma smiled slightly. You make it based on what you know, what you can do, and what you can live with. She walked between the rows of students. I can teach you the skills, the procedures, the techniques, but I can't teach you how to live with the consequences. That's something each of you has to figure out. Another hand. Dr. Thorne, is it true you killed people during the hospital attack? The room went silent. Emma didn't flinch. Yes, I did. She met the student's eyes. I'm not proud of it, but I'd do it again, because those men came here to murder patients and staff, to destroy evidence, to prevent justice. Her voice hardened. I have regrets, many regrets, but stopping them isn't one of them. A third student spoke up. How do you deal with the PTSD, with the trauma? Emma appreciated the honesty. I don't deal with it. I manage it. There's a difference. She leaned against the desk. I see a therapist. I take medication when I need it. I run every morning. I talk to people who understand. I focus on the work. She paused. And I accept that I'll never be the person I was before, but that's okay, because the person I am now is stronger, more capable, more committed. The class absorbed that. Emma looked at the clock. All right, enough philosophy. Let's run trauma scenarios. Hayes, you're up first. Motorcycle accident, multiple trauma, airway compromised. Go. Emily moved to the simulation mannequin, started her assessment, applied her training. Emma watched, saw herself in that young nurse, the determination, the skill, the commitment, saw the future. That evening, Emma's apartment was small, 1 bedroom, sparse furnishings, but it was hers, not a hiding place, not a refuge, just a home. She sat on the couch, glass of wine, TV on, but muted. Her phone buzzed. Text from Dr. Donovan. Dinner tomorrow celebratory. 6 months of Valkyrie Center success. Emma smiled. Type back. Yes, where? That Italian place downtown, 7 p.m. I'll be there. Emma set down her phone, looked around her apartment. Photos on the mantle now, not hidden, not shameful. Her wedding photo. She and David, dead 5 years from cancer. Before Helmand, before everything changed. Military service photo. Young Emma, 23, idealistic. Helmand team photo. Older Emma, harder, burdened. The 37 children, smiling, innocent. And new photos. The Valkyrie Center opening. Florida disaster relief. Her teaching team. A progression. A journey. From idealism to trauma, to hiding, to fighting, to building. Emma's phone rang again. Connor Blackwood this time. Dr. Thorne, sorry to bother you. Never a bother, Connor. What's up? I'm thinking about becoming a combat medic. After my SEAL contract, I want to do what you do. Emma felt warmth spread through her chest. That's a good choice. Why the change? Connor was quiet for a moment. Because you showed me that the real fight isn't just about taking down bad guys. It's about protecting the good ones, keeping them alive, giving them a chance. His voice grew stronger. I want to be part of that fight. Emma smiled. Then come to the center. We'll train you properly, so when you get to the battlefield, you're ready. Thank you, ma'am. That means everything. They talked for a few more minutes, then hung up. Emma sat in her quiet apartment, thought about all the paths that had led here, all the choices, all the pain, all the growth. She'd started as an idealistic young surgeon who thought she could save everyone, became a combat veteran who learned she couldn't, ran for 18 months from that truth, and finally found a way to transform the pain into purpose. To teach, to build, to pass on what she'd learned. She thought about Helmand, about the 37 children, about the 3 casualties who died while she saved 1 rifleman. The weight was still there, would always be there, but it was bearable now, because she'd found people to share it with, and a mission worth carrying it for. 6 months later, Janvier 2026, the Valkyrie Center, 1-year anniversary. The center had grown. What started as a small training program was now a recognized institution. Partnerships with medical schools, federal funding, recognition from the Department of Defense. Emma stood in the main lecture hall, addressing a class of 50 students. 1 year ago, she said this center didn't exist. It was just an idea, a hope that we could transform trauma into teaching, pain into purpose. She looked at the faces watching her. Today, we've trained over 1,200 combat medics, civilian and military. We've deployed to 5 disaster zones. We've saved lives that statistics say shouldn't have been saved. Emma paused. But more importantly, we've created a community, a family, a place where people who've seen too much can come together, can teach, can heal. She gestured to the back of the room. Dr. Donovan stood there, smiling. Beside her, Chief Mason Wilder, Captain Wesley Blackwood, Connor Blackwood in Navy combat medic uniform, Emily Hayes, now an instructor, Robert Martinez, the construction worker, now a volunteer trauma counselor, Ruth Zimmerman, still running the ICU but teaching part-time. All of them, everyone who'd stood with her that night, everyone who'd reminded her who she was. This center exists because of you, Emma said, because you refused to let me hide, because you fought beside me, because you believed that what we'd been through mattered. Her voice grew thick with emotion. Thank you for everything. The hall erupted in applause. Standing ovation. Emma felt tears on her cheeks. Didn't bother to hide them. This was healing, not the absence of pain, but the presence of purpose. That afternoon, Emma's office, larger now, more photos on the walls, more evidence of a life being lived rather than hidden from. Her phone rang. General Kessler. Valkyrie, how's the anniversary celebration? Good, sir. Really good. I'm glad to hear it. Kessler paused. I have something to tell you. Sentencing came through for Blackwell. Emma sat up. And life, no parole, federal supermax. Emma exhaled slowly. What about the others? Sentences ranging from 20 to 45 years. Everyone involved is going down. Kessler's voice softened. You did it, Emma. You brought down the whole network. Emma looked at the photo of the Helmand orphanage on her wall. 37 children. 37 lives cut short. It doesn't bring them back, she said quietly. No, but it means they didn't die for nothing. Their deaths exposed corruption that was killing soldiers, wasting billions, destroying lives. Kessler paused. Justice isn't the same as resurrection, but it's something. Emma nodded. Yeah, it's something. They talked for a few more minutes, then hung up. Emma sat in her office, quiet, reflective. She thought about the journey, from Helmand to hiding to fighting to building, about the woman she'd been and the woman she'd become, about all the lives saved and all the lives lost, and finally learning that she didn't have to carry it alone. A knock on the door. Dr. Donovan poked her head in. Ready for dinner celebration. Emma smiled. Yeah, let's go. As they walked out of the Valkyrie Center, Emma looked back at the building, at what they'd created, at the legacy they were building. She thought about a question a student had asked earlier. Dr. Thorne, what if we can't save everyone? And her answer. Then you choose, and you fight for that choice. You live with the weight, but you never stop fighting. She remembered the words she'd spoken that night, when Connor Blackwood asked what she'd said while operating on him. Not today. 3 simple words. But they meant everything. Not today would death win. Not today would the bad guys succeed. Not today would she give up. Emma Thorne had spent 18 months running from her calling, and the rest of her life running toward it. She was Valkyrie, the chooser of the slain. But she chose differently now. She chose that they lived. All of them. Every single one. And when death came knocking, when the impossible happened, when everything went wrong, her answer was always the same. Not today. Not on my watch. Text appears on screen. The Valkyrie Center for Combat Medicine has trained over 1,200 medics in its first 2 years. Dr. Emma Thorne continues to teach and deploy to disaster zones worldwide. Dr. Catherine Donovan serves as co-director, specializing in psychological trauma treatment. Petty Officer Connor Blackwood completed combat medic training and now serves as an instructor. Chief Mason Wilder retired from active duty and teaches tactical medicine at the center. Victor Blackwell is serving life without parole at Aix-Florence Federal Supermax Prison. 47 co-conspirators received sentences ranging from 20 to 45 years. The Helmand Orphanage has been rebuilt with settlement funds from the Blackwell case. 37 scholarships have been established in the children's names. Emma Thorne testified before Congress in 2026, leading to comprehensive defense contractor oversight reform.